This engine is SD50AF. Hi, I'm Dan Cortopassi. Today I'm reviewing an HO scale SD50AF locomotive from Aurora Miniatures. My model is decorated for Canadian National in the stripe scheme. Aurora offers the SD50AF in two versions. The MSRP for the DCC Ready version is $249.99. The MSRP for the version with DCC and sound is $349.99. I took advantage of a Black Friday sale and got my sound equipped model for $199.99 from Lombard Hobbies. We'll start the model at 100 possible points. The engine comes in a sturdy cardboard box. Inside, a plastic cradle protects the model. The cradle has clear plastic pieces that can be pulled away. The bottom of the cradle is molded in a harder black plastic. The model is secured to the bottom part of the cradle with a pair of Phillips screws. Noticeably absent from the box is any kind of manual, however there is a downloadable manual available on the Aurora Miniatures website. I'm not a fan of boxes like this that hold the model with screws, but the box should still do a good job of protecting the model for storage and transport. According to the Aurora Miniatures website, General Motors Diesel, EMD's Canadian operation, built a total of 4 SD50AF units for Canadian National in 1985. These were essentially demonstrator SD60Fs and had the EMD 710 prime mover used in the SD60 series. Aurora uses SD50AF for these units, but some of the online rosters I found list them as SD60Fs. I'm going to use SD50AF for the purposes of this review. I previously reviewed one of the Aurora SD60F units, and that video is still available here on the channel if you want to watch it. The SD50F and SD60F were Canadian variants of the EMD SD50 and SD60 with a full-width cowl body and a wide cab. The body design included the Draper Taper, an angled section behind the cab for improved visibility to the rear. These SD50AF units were classed as GF638A on the CN and were initially numbered 9900 to 9903. They were renumbered 5500 to 5503 in 1989. Interestingly, the model has both numbers on the back end. I found photos of the rear of the real 5502, and this is accurate. I can't recall ever seeing a locomotive with more than one road number on it at a time, so this seems unusual. I'm not sure if this was a CN practice or something unique to these particular units. If anyone has any additional information on that, please let me know in the comments. CN retired the SD50AF units in 2017. 5502 and 5503 went to a recycling company. 5500 and 5501 ended up on the Dakota, Missouri Valley and Western Railroad. I compared the models to photos I found of the real 5502 online, and as far as I can tell, it looks to be spot on. I like the paint variation around the road number on the cab sides, which matches photos and likely dates from the time when the locomotive was renumbered. The overall appearance of this unit didn't seem to change much over the years, so this model should do a good job representing the engine from 1989 through 2017. If you're curious, the main differences I noticed between the SD50AF and the SD60F are the placement of the number boards, the type of ditch lights, and the placement of the class or marker lights. The two models also have a slightly different shade of red paint. The paint on the model is opaque and evenly applied. The light-colored stripes on the sides are a little thicker than the black, but still thin enough not to obscure any details. Even with all those stripes on the sides and so many places where something could be a little off, the separation lines between the colors are sharp and I couldn't find any voids. Aurora did an excellent job with the paint. As with the Aurora SD60F that I reviewed previously, the stripes are shinier than the rest of the model. This is hard to see with my studio lights, but you can see it in person. When I get around to weathering the model, I usually start with a clear flat spray, and that should even things out. The cab has thin metal sunshades. The side windows do not appear to open. The non-operating side doors have clear glazing and you can see through to the other side. The view is partially obstructed by the mechanism, but it's a cool effect. I like the louver detail on the rear of the left side of the unit. The trucks have a lot of detail, including brake lines and flexible sander lines. The right side rear truck has really neat brake chain detail. Some of the axles have rotating end caps as appropriate. In front, the model has a cab-mounted bell, freestanding grab irons, and separately applied windshield wipers. The handrails appear to be made of plastic and are flexible enough to resist moderate handling, though they are leaning back slightly on my model in the front. Lower down, the pilot has uncoupling levers and hoses. The plow appears to match prototype photos, though in most of the photos I found the stripes are so dirty that they're barely visible. The pilot steps are see-through. In back, the detail level is similar to the front. The handrails here are straighter. The model has the Canadian-style single-beam rear headlight. There's no plow on this end, but the pilot does have a spare knuckle holder. On top, the cab has a nicely done antenna and a wire conduit or air line leading back to the horn. The dynamic brake grid is nicely rendered. There's a nice horn casting, and the exhaust is open so that you can see into it. The radiator fans have see-through grills and individual blades, even the one that's partially hidden by the winterization hatch. The radiator grills are also see-through. It's hard to see since everything is painted black, but there is detail inside. Underneath, the model has nice detail under the sills. The truck gearboxes are formed in such a way as to resemble individual traction motors on each axle. The trucks have metal wheels with the standard RP25 tread profile. All the axles are powered and all the wheels pick up current. The model has plastic knuckle couplers on both ends. Looking for a match on the horizontal center line, the front coupler is at the correct height. The rear coupler is also correct. One wheel set on each truck is narrow and gauge, so I'm taking 5 points each. There's no body wobble. The model weighs 21.9 ounces, the same as the Aurora SD60F model that I reviewed previously. Drawbar pull was interesting on this one. My 2 initial tries topped out at 6.8 ounces, but after that the best I got was 4.0 ounces, and I wasn't able to repeat the higher result. I suspect that there might be more wheel slip after the wheels have spun for a while and polished themselves on the rail. For comparison, the Aurora SD60F I reviewed pulled 3.7 ounces, and the scale train Santa Fe SD40-2 that I reviewed last year topped out at 4.2. I'm running the model on DCC. I haven't changed any of the default CV settings except to set the address to 5502. The model starts and runs very smoothly. F1 rings the bell. F2 sounds the horn. The length of the toot depends on how long the F2 key is pressed. F8 turns on the sound as well as the number boards. F0 turns on the headlight, which is directional. The front headlight comes on and the model is set to move forward, and the rear headlight comes on in reverse. F6 turns on the ditch lights. F5 cycles the class lights. F11 turns on the radiator fans and also plays the fan noise if the sound is on. With regard to the fan setup, after I reviewed the SD60F, some people commented that the newer SD50 models from Aurora were better. I would agree. The fans on this model are nearly silent with the sound off and they rotate at different speeds. The fans on the older SD60F are noisy and they all rotate at the same rate. The model has step and truck lights, which is really neat. These are on by default but can be turned off with F13. The truck lights are very dim and I wasn't able to show them on video, but they are there. F22 turns on the cab lights. It's a little hard to see, but there's an instrument panel light inside the cab. F4 activates the dynamic brake noise. F9 turns on the full throttle feature. This freezes the prime mover sound at the current level, unlinking it from the throttle setting. This can be used to simulate a heavy train starting out in run 8. Or an engine that is coasting. The manual says that F10 is an independent brake. This makes a noise but doesn't stop the engine, though it will keep it from moving if it's already stopped. This is a little weird compared to other Loc-Sound equipped models that I've tested, so I suspect it's a programming issue. The model has a capacitor circuit that will keep it running for a few seconds if it loses power. That will help the model over areas of dirty track. With the sound off, the model is pretty quiet. I'll take the model apart. I'll start by removing the coupler boxes. Yeah, I remember this from the other Aurora model, and that the draft gear boxes are a little bit weird and difficult to take apart. So the draft gearboxes have these vertical pieces on them that makes it impossible to pull them out through the pilot. So you basically have to take them apart and extract everything piece by piece. It's a little bit of a pain. A couple just got caught on one of these things. There it goes. They also say to take the removable part of the roof off. And once again, you have to be careful of this wire. That wire isn't actually on the SD60 model that I have, so that was a little easier. I also have to dislodge this ribbon cable connector. I just did it with my fingernail. Once that's done, the shell should lift off according to the instructions that I had for my other model, since this model didn't actually come with specific instructions. Be very careful with these too, because as I discovered on the SD60, there's these little very sharp things in here, which I'm not too fond of because they will go right through your skin if you touch them the wrong way. So be super careful with those. I think I actually took points for those on the last review for the SD60F, but since I haven't cut myself with this one, I think I'll let it go this time. Something's holding it up. I'll finish this off camera. So with the shell off, we can see the circuit board. There's the Loc sound decoder right here. And then there's a pair of, looks like sugar cube speakers with an enclosure on this end, and then some contacts for the fan mechanism, which is up in the shell. So to fix the wheel gauge, I'm going to remove the cover that covers the worm gear. Kind of wedge it off with a screwdriver, and then I'll pull out the drive shaft. Try not to lose any parts. So unfortunately, the way this model's made, there's not a lot of slack in the wires. So I'm going to have to pull the tape off that holds these wires on the sides of the frame so that I can get a little more slack and actually pull the truck out of there. So this gives you a little bit of slack. Now, normally I would take the truck apart and pull the axle out. However, this one's put together in kind of a weird way. I see there's clips, but I actually did the rear one first, and I was having trouble getting it to come apart. So the only good thing, this truck design makes it so you can actually grab the wheels with them still in there. So I'm just twisting and pulling a little bit and seeing if I can just spread them apart a little bit without taking it apart, without taking the whole thing apart. It took several tries, but I was able to get it. Now they're engaged. So I did it on both of them. The back truck had one wheel set out of gauge 2, but now this looks good. So I'm going to go ahead and put it back together. Hopefully this shows up on camera. There's a little groove in the side of the chassis that the wire sits in. So I'm going to try to tuck it back in there. I used some Kapton tape to replace the original tape that I took off. You could use any kind of tape here, really. Kapton tape is insulated, but I also like it because it's very thin and it's not going to keep the shell from going back on. These little pieces right here are the ones that I poked my finger on with the other engine in the other review. They're just plastic, but they're super sharp, so I'm just going to take my cutters and nip off the end. Unless you care about details you can't see, would recommend maybe doing that, because that's a lot less likely to puncture you. And putting the coupler box back in is a little bit tricky. You got to put the upper part of the draft gearbox in first. And I'm going to put the KD158, because I like KD158s better than the stock couplers. Had to kind of angle it to get it through the pilot, the hole in the pilot, and then put it in there. Then I have to use pliers to hold the lower lid of the draft gearbox and kind of insert it. Then I have to try to stick the screw through it and hope that nothing moved. This is, I really, wish manufacturers would stop trying to reinvent the wheel with draft gearboxes and just stick with something normal. Because I get, wanting to be more to scale or whatever, but, there comes a point when it just becomes so inconvenient that, to me, it kind of erases any benefit. I did have to loosen it just a little because if I tighten it completely, the Katy won't swing side to side, so that looks better. Thankfully, after all that, the couplers came out at the right height, so they were the right height to begin with, and the new couplers are still at the right height, so that's good. On the SD60F that I reviewed, I had to do some work to get the couplers right, so this is better than that. I remember when I reviewed the SD60F, some people were asking if I was going to review the SD50F or SD50AF, or the one that I have now, basically. And I was reluctant to because I didn't really feel like I needed another Canadian National diesel. Even though some people said that this run of models was actually improved. I guess Aurora did the SD60s first and then the 50s, kind of backwards from the actual production of the real ones. Anyway, but I really wasn't, I'm an SP modeler. I not that these aren't really cool models. They are, they're really neat. I like them, but I wasn't going to do it. But I got sucked in by a Black Friday sale. I saw that Lombard Hobbies had one of these for, just under $200 with sound in it, which is less than the MSRP for the non-sound version on the Aurora website. And I was like, okay, for that price, I'll buy it. So that's why I decided to review this one. And it was a pretty good deal. I mean, it's got everything the other one does. And there are definitely some improvements. I'm especially impressed by the fans. That they're so much quieter and that they do rotate at different speeds, which is really nice. I'm not sure if they set them up with separate motors this time instead of gears or something, but there's a lot less noise. So I definitely would be more inclined to use the fans on this unit than the other one. So I think, Aurora did a pretty nice job, and I hope they continue to make, nice models in the future. Let's see what we've got. The model had 2 out-of-gauge wheel sets, so I took a total of 10 points in the standards and operation category. That leaves us with 90 out of 100 possible points, which earns an A-. Overall, this is a pretty nice model. I'm giving it a green signal. Overall, I think Aurora did a pretty nice job on this model. If you're looking for a Canadian National diesel for your HO scale layout, then I think you might like it. If you like this video, then please like, comment, share, and subscribe. It really helps the channel and I appreciate it. Stay tuned and thanks for watching.